Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back once again to Fat Cat Collections. Today I want to do kind of well, it is a fragrance review, but I didn't want to do a double fragrance review, but I do want to talk about the other one. So I bought two fragrances by Yardley Gentlemen. Yardley is a super cheap brand. You can get on eBay for about, I don't know, 10 to 15 bucks for 3.4 ounces, and I got two of them today. I want to share with you guys Yardley Gentlemen Legacy and then Elite. Pretty straightforward, really simple bottle, nothing really to write home about. You guys know when I do a fragrance review, I don't really care what the bottle looks like. I don't have these on display or anything like that, and I sure as heck don't want to pay for some fancy bottle, right? I want affordable, I want cheap, I want it to smell good at the end, right? It's all about the juice. So, you know, color, there's a slight difference between both bottles. One is kind of a lighter, I'd say tan. The other one's a little bit creamier, a little darker. And so a lot of these fragrances by Yardley are not really readily available for discussion on Fragrantica for some reason. You can't really find Yardley Gentlemen Legacy. Now, I did buy this, you know, kind of a blind, these are both blind buys. And anytime that I do, I guess when guys say it's a blind buy, we can't really consider it a full blind buy, because I did look on Fragrantica to try to find the notes and look on the internet to try to find notes for any of these. And the Elite was on, or is on Fragrantica, and I want to talk about mainly this one today, but I do want to just mention that anytime I get a new fragrance, I'm looking for a new fragrance. I'm not trying to get ones that smell like other fragrances I have. If there are some notes that I really like I tend to like woody fragrances, oud, stuff like that, I will gravitate towards those. But when it comes to getting something that smells exactly like a clone, that's great if I'm in the market for that. But this one here, to me, is I have, what is it? It's, I'm drawing a blank. Insurrection Pure 2 Wild, I think that's one. Anyway, I'm drawing a blank on which one it is, but it's a Pure Havane clone. And so this, to me, smells very similar to Pure Havane. It definitely has that Angel Man kind of DNA. If you've ever smelled Pure Havane, or if you've Insurrection Pure Wild, you know, it has that very, very warm, creamy, and I know a lot of guys will, I hate doing this, but I do understand why the fragrance community does when they talk about, you know, occasions for this, weather for this. I believe you can wear any fragrance whenever you want, but I do kind of tend to understand when guys will call fragrances like this more of a cold weather scent. To me, I've worn Pure Havane clones. I've worn Tuscan leather clones in, you know, the middle of summer, and really it doesn't really make much difference to me. But, you know, wear what you like, of course, and wear when you want, you know. But I do think this is pretty unisex. It is, I think, if you've ever smelled Pure Havane, or if you smell Insurrection, it's definitely kind of I would say a hybrid between both those. And I know that, you know, Pure Havane is a Mugler fragrance, right? But how am I trying to word this? I feel like when you smell Pure Havane, it has that DNA from, from Mugler, but like Angel Man, or Angel Man. But this, to me, I think kind of leans a little bit towards, it's like basically, if I'm wording this correctly, basically we're to take Angel Man and Pure Havane and spray both. That's what you get. It's like a mix between those two. Still a great fragrance, but I was hoping for something different. But this is a real winner. I mean, for the price, if you're in the market for Pure Havane, definitely, or Angel Man, definitely check this out. You'll like it. It was like 13 bucks. And I'll put a link in the description for all these. But the one I mainly want to talk about today is Gentlemen Elite. This one here is fantastic, guys. I don't have anything that smells like this. It's its own thing in my collection. And I have, you know, close to 200 fragrances, small bottles, big bottles. I love this. And what's interesting about this is that as cheap as this is, it's pretty darn good. I actually sprayed this on my body. I did go overkill. I'm more of like a 9 to 10 spray guy. We went out to the casino. My folks said it was really strong. They could smell it, but it wasn't like cloying. I wouldn't say it lasted like a good 8 hours. But what was interesting is the next day when I got back into my car. I left my leather jacket in the car, and I kept smelling like this great smell. And it was this, a little bit got on the collar. So that's over 24 hours later, you could still smell it. I do feel like when you spray clothing, a lot of times, it seems to linger more. Again, on skin, everybody's skin is different. For me, I can really douse myself, and I just feel like none of them really last, you know. But fantastic fragrance. Let me just read you the notes. On Fragrantica, this has been compared to Abercrombie Fierce, which, to be honest with you, I've never actually smelled, only by 2 people. I've never actually smelled Abercrombie Fierce right out of the bottle. I know in our local mall, when I've walked by over the years, I always smelled it. And I was always like, wow, I got to get some of that. Because, I'm assuming that was Abercrombie Fierce. It was when I would walk by that store back around then is when Abercrombie Fierce first came out, and so I feel like you smelled a lot of it on the younger dudes, which is really interesting because I don't really consider it a younger guy's fragrance, but again, you can, whatever age you are, you can wear whatever you want, but it does, I think it's kind of more sophisticated, you know. Not to say young dudes can't be sophisticated, you know, you kind of get what I'm saying, but the comparison here, I got a very slight vibe of that, but if I didn't read that 2 dudes had compared this to Abercrombie Fierce, I probably wouldn't have made that connection. It is one that I've had on my radar for a long time. I probably will get it eventually, but I really want to smell it right out of the bottle first, because if this is, you know, pretty close to it, I won't waste my money on it. And a lot of times, if you haven't checked out my fragrance reviews, I know a lot of guys will take you on a full journey of, ooh, you have the opening and all this nonsense. And hey, I get it. Maybe some dudes can really smell every single scent, every single note that comes out of fragrance. To me, I don't feel like a fragrance starts to change and I can smell every single thing. With me, I'm pretty simple-minded with this stuff. When I spray it on, like initially, that first blast out of the bottle is probably the realest impression I'm going to get from the fragrance. Yeah, things kind of change a little bit. The other notes kind of wear down, it dries down, that kind of stuff. I get that. But honestly, once it gets in my nose and I spray it, you know, to me, I can't even smell it anymore. So whatever notes are in there, I can smell that. Oh, I have you know, a cologne on, but I can't tell you the note breakdown at all. You know, but I will tell you what this has in it. You have in the top notes grapefruit and basil. In the middle notes pine and vetiver. In the base notes patchouli, amber, and sandalwood. And I think the comparison might happen here. A lot of times when we smell fragrances, a lot of times, you know, depending on the fragrance, I know they say there's top notes, middle notes, and base notes, but I think realistically, at least for me, when I smell a fragrance, there's probably only maybe 2 notes, maybe 3, that I might be able to pinpoint that fragrance based on, you know, something I've smelled before. Like if it's rose, I can pinpoint rose, right? And I think a lot of times fragrances are kind of dominant with one note. There's going to be something that really sticks out to each person, you know. Now, if you're really well trained, you know, I don't know if you know, there's some guys who they smell these individual notes and they're very familiar with being able to pick those out. I don't know, I'm not sure. You know, an example would be like if somebody was cooking something in the kitchen and they had on a really heavy fragrance and, you know, there was heavy garlic in the air. I may be able to pick out the garlic, you know, but I don't know if I'd be able to pick out anything else, you know, and that's kind of a crude description of what I'm trying to say, but I just don't think that really anybody can really pinpoint all these notes like a lot of the dudes reviewing clones. I think they basically tell you a story about the notes, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not hating or anything like that, but just for me, again, it's very simple, and I think for a lot of dudes, it is pretty simple, right? So what do I get from this? So when I smell this, let me just refresh myself here. What I really get from this, and I can definitely smell the grape, and I'm looking at the notes here. And again, if I didn't look at the notes, I don't know if I'd be able to just tell you what I smell. Again, there's other guys out there who are probably a lot more experienced who will be able to do that. For me, based on what I read, I can definitely get that basil and grapefruit right in the beginning. And I think that's basil's kind of sharp. Another fragrance I have that has a basil note is Banana Republic Slate. There's a lot of basil in that, and I feel like the basil you can really get that basil and grapefruit. Now, there is kind of a piney note to this as well, which kind of explains the pine. I don't really get the vetiver very much in this. Patchouli, not at all. And sandalwood, I wouldn't call this really a woody fragrance, you know. Although again, when you compare it to other fragrances that are fruity, like I wouldn't say that if I smell this that this is a fruity fragrance, but I think it's pretty sharp. And that's like the best I can really describe it. You know, if I compare this to Slate, it's not the same juice at all, but I can definitely get that grapefruit and definitely get that basil. That's very sharp and apparent. And I would say that note definitely lingers. It definitely stays throughout the fragrance. Another thing too, I kind of noticed that this morning when I was leaving and I had that leather jacket on, I kind of smelled, I got a little bit of impression from Dior Homme. Now, I don't personally like Dior Homme, but, this kind of had a little bit of that kind of I guess it would be a dry down scent. And I think what I'm smelling is the residual basil, because I think Dior Homme has basil in it. So, again, it's a very sharp, kind of woody fragrance is the best way I could describe it. Even though I don't like the sandalwood doesn't just jump out at me, that's the best way I could describe it. When we look at Abercrombie Fierce does have orange, lemon, and fir, and I think that the orange and lemon will kind of mimic grapefruit to me. I feel like grapefruit's kind of a cross between a lemon and an orange, you know. And then of course you have fir, and I think the fir can also be mistaken for pine, so it give you kind of the same vibe that pine might. And I feel like that's where that comparison might be made with Abercrombie Fierce. Again, sandalwood is also in the base notes of Abercrombie. So is vetiver. And again, vetiver and sandalwood are in this fragrance as well. So I would say, if we stretch this and say, all right, well, we have lemon and orange that duplicates grapefruit. Well, I would say that's a match. Pine and fir, I would say that's kind of a match, right? So you have two notes that I would consider sort of a match to my senses. And then, of course, sandalwood and vetiver. That's four notes that I think they share in common. I think that's where the comparison lies. Again, when I first smell this, I don't immediately get Abercrombie Fierce. Again, I haven't smelled Abercrombie Fierce that much, but I can kind of get that vibe on why some people may say that, Again, I kind of get the two fragrances that come to mind for me is like, again, a little bit of Fierce, a little bit of Dior Homme. Now, what do I think about it? For the price, it's amazing. I mean, this stuff for about 13 bucks. Links are in the description, guys. I think it's definitely one that you'll see, once people kind of get wind of this, then, I've seen the prices jump, as we all have as frag heads. Next thing you know, somebody will review something. It gets, I don't want to say hyped, but I think it gets awareness. And then people start buying it, and that price goes up, becomes more scarce. I love this brand. I mean, I really look forward to trying more from this brand. And I'm going to look up for Grant to see what else they have. But yeah, check it out, guys. Anyway, Gentleman Elite, I think this is a real winner. If you have smelled Dior Homme and you have smelled Abercrombie Fierce, I think you will really like this. If you're a fan of the woody, I would say more, I like to call these kind of masculine, sophisticated fragrances. I think you will love this. And I think this, for the price, when I think of $13 fragrances, I kind of lean towards like Dollar Tree Designer Imposters, right? Where you get the idea, you're like, oh yeah, I see where that kind of smells like that, but they don't last for more than 20 minutes, right? Super, super watered down. This stuff is great. And what's interesting about this too, it says here 100 mils, 3.4 ounces, 80% by volume. I think they would be considered an eau de toilette. And expiration on this they have in that's really hard to see, 2023. So I guess we're kind of at their, at our, the max potency here up to 2023. I wear fragrances way past expiration dates, and I never had a problem with them. Some do change a little bit. My oldest one is like Fahrenheit, original bottle of Fahrenheit from back in 1990, I'd say 5 or 6. It's definitely changed, but it's still Fahrenheit, So, again, everybody's got their ideas on, what they will wear and not wear. But really simple, really basic. I mean, you really can't go wrong. This stuff does not smell like a $13 fragrance. And there's nothing wrong with, inexpensive fragrances. You guys know I'm a real fan of, getting a good deal. But, some of the ones out there, like I've smelled, they smell great, but they just don't last. I feel like these fragrances really last. Again, if we're looking at Legacy, this one I wore yesterday, and it was at least 5-6 hours. I could still smell it. By the morning, it was pretty much gone. But great fragrances. Look forward to trying more from the brand. Like I said, at time, I think you'll find this price jump up. If you see these at like TJ Maxx or Ross, pick them up. I'm going to take a trip up there maybe tomorrow and see if they have anything. I've noticed lately when I've gone into like TJ Maxx, the last time they had like one fragrance. I was amazed. Normally there's all kinds of stuff. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching the video. If you do like the content, subscribe to the channel. If you have this juice or have any kind of opinions about it, I love when you guys drop comments, as all YouTubers do. Let me know what you think about it. But I think they're winners. I think you really can't go wrong for the price. And add them to your collection. All right, guys, have a great day. Take care.